And if you want to ingratiate yourself with the fans, no better way of doing that than starting at the Royal Dyche and sinking plenty of pints. But if you've seen the size of the guy, you probably need about 20 before he's even going to flip and feel it. Hi, my name is Mike. Welcome to my vlog about football in general and Burnley FC in particular. A vlog that is looking at the sheer torrent of news that is coming out of the club at the moment and wondering if I can kind of keep this under an hour. So the season ends, and what a year it has been. This time last season, after the final game, I remember standing on the turf watching it empty, feeling disappointed, feeling a bit beaten up, feeling tired most of all. I was so tired of watching the club struggle to stay in the Premier League, to fight against the odds, to fight against the way that the Premier League is structured, that tilted table. Tired of just watching the players give absolutely everything in a fight that would only ever end their own way. And this season has kind of rebuilt my love for football, not the club or the sport, but the love for football and the things that happen around the game. Being in the Premier League is so incredibly noisy. It is constant hype, it is constant noise. The games are less important than the talking about the games, and there is no rest from the talk by people who don't know anything about football, who are actually paid to have opinions but not paid to educate themselves about the game. And it is relentless when you hear all this stuff all the time. Being in the Championship has kind of reignited my love of football because it's about the game. It's about the club. There is a realism to it. So there is a game, and then there is another game, and then there is another game. Obviously winning helps. Obviously having the season we have has helped. But it's been nice to not have that noise for so long. It's been nice to be in a situation where you just talk about the game and not the narrative, where you're not stuck with people sort of telling you things that aren't true, that your team are a bunch of thugs, that your club isn't worthy of sharing the same pitch as a Liverpool, a Manchester City or an Arsenal. It gets tiring after a while, but this season has kind of reignited the love of the game, the love of the structure of football. And obviously it's helped that, as I say, that we've won the league in such an incredible way. The way that the team have played, the way that the games have been, we have had memories that are going to live forever. And it doesn't matter, kind of how bad things get over the next decade or so. At some point, we'll sort of, turn around to the person next to us, whatever, say, it could be bad, but, you remember Preston at home? Do you remember Wigan at home? Do you remember Huddersfield? Do you remember winning the league somewhere? That kind of thing. It feels like, we've kind of emerged out of the darkness, blinking and stumbling as if we've been stuck in some Austrian weirdo's basement for 16 years. It just culminated on Monday with probably just what you call a routine 3-0 win. But the game didn't actually matter. It was about the occasion. We had the DJ sets. We had flamethrowers that made it basically about a quarter of your average Rammstein concert. And then, of course, we had the trophy lift at the end. Although we also had the stupid pitch invasion by a bunch of selfish dickheads. So, it wasn't quite the perfect day. But, that's the way it goes sometimes. But that trophy lift was absolutely fantastic. All credit to the club for putting on a memorable occasion of a day, a memorable show, for want of a better phrase. I checked with Dave Roberts of the No Nay Never podcast, who does all the fantastic Burnley stats. I said to him, have we ever lifted a trophy at Turf Moor? And he said, yep, 1992, the 4th Division trophy. That was a little bit different. The team back then just basically trotted onto the pitch 15 minutes before the game was due to start and were presented with the trophy to a bunch of cheers and handshakes that were celebrations, kind of like, one of them had stood up in the pub and announced that the wife was in the family way. This time, we had everything parachutists and cheerleaders. So, yeah, times have definitely changed. But that trophy lift, the presentation, the whole thing, as I watched sort of, the crowd, the players, it was, memories that were going to last for a long time. and just a bright future. And then we just have the news coming out of the club about company's contract, about JJ Watt's investment. Tonight they've announced, not a secret, but kind of the obvious, that John Bear has now signed a 4-year contract. I'm going to talk about some of this stuff over the off season. I'm not going to do it today because I'm going to do some things in the off season. I have some ideas. I'm not going to be doing it every week or anything like that. But as things occur to me, as players kind of come and go, as things happen in the Premier League, then I'm preparing for the Premier League season. Then I will be doing some more stuff. But it's kind of like it's the relentlessness of football. There is no break anymore. There is no opportunity to sort of stop and take breath. Hopefully, over the next couple of weeks, the players, the staff, everybody involved in the club is actually going to be able to take a little bit of time off, some richly deserved time off, before the preparation for the Premier League kind of starts in anger. I know the club have been preparing probably since the World Cup break, probably since that moment when the team that was second in the league came to the turf and got absolutely demolished, and everyone, even at that point, even at that early time, knew that we were going back into the Premier League. And that was fantastic. So on Monday, and speaking about all the people who kind of, the changes in the club and stuff like that, it wasn't lost on me on Monday that Cardiff were the visitors. And I remember Cardiff coming to the turf themselves as champions in 2013 and celebrating, rightly, a deserved championship as they went up into the Premier League. But what I also remember is what it cost them to get there. And that was a club that sold its soul for a shot at the Premier League. It sold its colours. It sold its badge. It sold its heart because it was so desperate to get back into the Premier League. And I still remember those City players, including Craig Bellamy, assistant manager of the Clarets now, celebrating in front of a packed sea of red. They sold everything for that shot at the Premier League to spend, 2 years there? And where are they now? Whereas ALK, they've done it differently. They've done it more planned. They've done it for, as we're about to find out, I guess, the right way. They've kept the soul of the club. They have made so much changes, but they have kept what is Burnley, and they understand what Burnley is. When they bought the club, they are clearly aware of that. They've clearly brought in JJ Watt, who seems to be an incredible guy, and his wife Kialia. That guy is definitely promoting Burnley to the United States, and I don't think there is a better person to do that. And if you want to ingratiate yourself with the fans, no better way of doing that than starting at the Royal Dyche and sinking plenty of pints. But if you've seen the size of the guy, he'd probably need about 20 before he's even going to flip and feel it. And I guess we're going to actually see some of the changes behind the scenes, as the much rumoured documentary is going to be on Sky in September. Mission to Burnley. I think, I'm going to talk about that when it actually happens, but it's interesting that the trailer and the title makes it clear there will be a focus on not just the backroom staff, but also on what looks like the directors, what looks like Alan Pace, what looks like also his religion, which is not something that ALK have pushed or anything like that. They've not openly, been talking about that. But I do remember about a year ago when Dyche was going and having a think about what ALK were doing, that I remember saying to a good friend that everyone is missing the important thing about these people and the way they do business. In that the way that they are Mormons, they are openly Mormons, the way that they act, their religion informs their personal and their business life. It's not important to them, it's actually fundamental. And yet it was missed. It was missed in the easy story of, here's some people from Wall Street in New York buying a Northwest community club. They have no idea about football because they're American and so on. And I remember sort of saying back then, I was like, no, if you actually look into these people and into their background, people are missing the obvious. But then, as I said at the start, many people who write and talk about football, especially in the press and the media on radio, they talk about football in a way to fit their predefined narrative, to fit their preconceptions. Remember, American hedge fund, leverage buyout, which means we're going to, go bust. We're going to be paying loads of money in salaries and and interest rates and blah, 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 blah. And they just didn't bother to check. They didn't bother to do their research. To use one of the phrases I use a lot, they looked but they didn't see. And I think it will be very interesting to see the behind the scenes and to see how all that comes together. Because I think one of the better things that happened, or the best, lots of better things, one of the best things that happened on Monday was the reception Alan Pace got as he went around the pitch just before the game. And it was much deserved, especially given the abuse that he got a year ago, or just over a year ago. And that's the thing, it's a year and a month since Dyche was fired, and look where we've changed, look where we are, look where they've managed to move the club to. I said I was going to talk about the ins and outs, and I will do in future videos, but obviously the one that was most important was the announcement that Ashley Barnes is leaving. When he scored on Monday, there was that wonderful moment when 19,000 fans in the stands noticed that the ball was about to fall to Ashley Barnes, and he didn't just smash it into the net. I think every single one of those 19,000 people willed it into the back of the net. And I think it was a glorious send-off. The only thing missing, I think, was an Ashley Barnes booking. But it was never going to happen on an occasion like that. But it was absolutely fantastic to see him get the send-off that he deserved. I've never been, and I've been open about this, I've never been a fan of him as a footballer. You know, I've always felt that as a footballer, he was pretty much useless outside the 18-yard box. You know, this is a guy who struggled to find a pass, whose hold-up play was iffy at best, who didn't get the calls from the referee because the things he was doing were a little too obvious. But I will never deny that he was the kind of player that Burnley needed to have. And in sort of thinking about Ashley Barnes and his time at the club, I've come to realise that he typified the amazing past decade that the club has had. The Premier League and the Dyche years are not necessarily summed up by Ben Mee or Tom Heaton or Danny Ings. They're typified by Ashley Barnes. And the reason I say that is because every criticism that you could make of Ashley Barnes, or every criticism that, more appropriately, opposition fans made of Ashley Barnes, was more appropriate to the club itself. We were unpopular. Burnley, we didn't know our place. We were old school. We put ourselves about too much. We went around kicking people instead of passing the ball on the ground. We didn't show the opposition respect. We scored when we shouldn't have. You know, Ashley Barnes typified all that. And the goals, he scored scruffy goals. They weren't usually 30-yard thunder bastards into the top corner. They were scruffy. They were miskicked. But most importantly, they were winning goals. Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea. Who ended Liverpool's unbeaten run? It was Ashley Barnes did it. He scored the goal that did it. When the entitled big rich clubs came up to the turf, it was Ashley Barnes who typified the Clarets, who typified the message that they were sent. He would sharpen his elbows, he would walk onto the pitch, and he would find the opposition star player, and he would just simply turn around and say, I'm not stuck on this pitch with you. You're stuck on this pitch with me. For that, Ashley Barnes deserves to go down in club history, never giving less than maximum effort, and a refusal to accept that he didn't deserve and hadn't earned the right to be on the pitch with more talented players. He scored key goals at key moments, and he wound up a whole bunch of people who deserve to be wound up. This is a guy who pissed off Jose Mourinho, and that's the thing. You would think that Mourinho would, deep down, appreciate being out shithoused for once, but he couldn't. Mourinho's post-match moaning after that game at Chelsea was a wonderful case of one of the most successful shithouses in football over the last decade and a bit, being unable to cope with Burnley. And that cannot be emphasised enough. That is one of the greats being outdone by Ashley Barnes. And I find that hilarious and wonderful and so typical of the effort and the time that he's given to Burnley FC. I've seen a lot of words describing Barnes, and they usually use the word legend, and the word legend has been devalued so completely much in society, but especially in football. Legend status is given to a guy who scores a goal in an important match. You know, there are other things like cult hero or whatever like that. I don't think legend is appropriate. I hate using the word legend. It's right up there with banter, with use by people who have no idea what they're actually talking to or unable to describe what they're actually talking about. And I will never say that Ashley Barnes is a club legend because of that. It's more than that. There is a word to describe Ashley Barnes. And I mean this with all the respect and admiration and goodwill in the world when I say that Barnes was never our greatest goal scorer. He was never our most exciting player. He was never our most skillful player. He was very definitely our greatest shithouse. And the word to describe Ashley Barnes is what he typified and what he means, and he will always be. And that word is claret. If you've got any comments about this video, please feel free to leave them down below and I will respond where I can. If you liked it, click the like button. And if you like what I do, have a look around the rest of the channel and click subscribe to be notified when I produce new content. It feels like, you know, we've kind of emerged out of the darkness, blinking and stumbling as if we've been stuck in some Austrian weirdo's basement for 16 years. I've been waiting to use that line since half-time of the Huddersfield game. It occurred to me then, I thought, am I ever going to use it publicly? Well, there you go. Anyway, where was I?